I can't look back, it's too late now. My days are hours and I don't know how, but I believe the great is still yet to come. I won't stop fighting, man, until I'm done.
So welcome to the latest edition of The Breakfast Ball. I'm your host, Bob Cardia, and to my left, your right, the dashing Richie Stoltz, our number one assistant and all-around good guy. So today is called Get Off the Couch, which is actually a story near and dear to my heart, actually. I got another one of my dad's stories which I like to tell. But growing up, Gary Player was the model for practice and whatnot for me. And, well, I was like, you guys should know who Gary Player is, by the way. And the story that I tell probably every semester now for the past year and a half, 2 years is our Jack Nicklaus story. So if you don't know who Jack Nicklaus is, you surely don't know who Gary Player is. But I guess about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years, I don't know, I said to a group of 20, 8 to 12-year-olds, does anybody know who Jack Nicklaus is? Expecting for everyone to say, yeah. And Richie, how many of the kids knew who Jack Nicklaus was?
None of them.
None of them. Zero, nada. After a couple minutes, actually a couple seconds, one kid raised his hand and said, Coach, he's like, wasn't that the guy in The Shining? So, okay, well, what's more alarming? That you got a class of kids that doesn't know who Jack Nicklaus is, or you've had an 8-year-old who's seen The Shining? Be nice to that kid for sure. But anyway, so Gary Player, one of the fitness gurus, probably the first fitness guru in golf, and one of the mentally toughest people that's ever played the game. He's a small guy, so they used to say, "Oh man, he's getting lucky." And they asked him about that one day, and he said, well, they tell me I'm lucky. He said, but the funny thing is, the harder I work, the luckier I seem to get, which is so true. Work hard, and if you work hard properly, you will get better. So the story I'm going to tell is about my father. So I love telling dad stories. So for those of you who are in our demographic, and Mary back there, who's also in our demographic, when we used to come home from school, there was the after-school special with, today I'm still just a bill and conjunction junction for those people who know what I'm talking about. But, the John Travolta movie, The Boy in the Plastic Bubble, which is crazy, but I used to watch those when I got home from school. So I'd make myself my green pea soup and my ham sandwich, and I'd sit and I'd dunk myself. Mary's making faces back there because she said that
sounds awful.
It does sound awful, but it was good, right? So I'm sitting there and drinking my soup, watching my after-school special, and my dad walks in, and he's like, son, why aren't you out practicing? Now, little known fact about my dad, our high school back in the 80s was thinking about canceling the golf program. And my dad, who was actually the coach at Rutgers prior to me, he went in and spoke to the school board. And he actually spoke to the local private golf course that we were using, or were going to use actually, because the golf course that we'd used in my freshman through junior years got bulldozed for a building project. Laurel Oak it was called. It got bulldozed. So my dad went in and he talked to all the parties concerned, and turns out almost every kid on the golf team was a member of the private golf course. I think there was 2 or 3 of the top 10 that weren't, and I was the only starter that was not a member of the golf course. So I'm sitting on the couch, I'm like, Dad, look, all the kids that are members, they have a driving range. People hit golf balls, they pick them up. I'm sorry, for them, right? They pick them up for them. Right. So my dad said, well, I bought you this brand new shag bag. And it was one of those old school big leather shag bags. And it's like, what you do, son, is you hit them and then you go retrieve them. And like me being a 16-year-old smart ass, I'm like, Dad, you want me to go to the schoolyard, hit the golf balls, find them, pick them up, bring them back, and do it again? And he said, I did when I was a kid. And I took that to be like, oh yeah, I walked both ways uphill in the snow every day. And I said, Dad, there's no way you hit all these golf balls, picked them up, and brought them back every day. And he looked at me and he said, "Son, that's really not very difficult when they're all about 10 feet apart." Okay, got it, right? The more I practice, the luckier I get. So I picked up that shag bag and I started practicing. And Richie knows this and Mary knows this. Like I'm big into working out. I work out quite a bit. I've charted every workout I've done since 1991, right? And we're in 2023. So actually this year I'm on pace to set a personal high in my workout programs. But so I decided back then, which was, I guess late 80s, that I'm going to do the same thing with my golf routine. Interesting, right? So when you work out, like Richie, Mary, we're all social people. We'll, on weekends we'll go out and we'll, enjoy ourselves. Practicing for perfection is different than working out. Like if you only have 20 minutes to work out, you can do your reps faster, get a higher intensity, stretch in different ways, and that works because I do believe showing up is better than not showing up. So whatever you can get in, you can get in. But I was practicing my golf, and like let's just say, me and the boys were going out on a Friday night, and I'm like, I mismanaged my time, and I only had 30 minutes left to practice golf. I'd grab the shag bag and run out to the schoolyard, and I'd hit 24 balls, and I'd write down what I worked on, and I'd leave. But guess what? After a period of time, I wasn't getting any better, and that's when I determined that charting golf practices doesn't work if you cannot do something. And I do this with some of my students. I call it ATD, attention to detail. Practicing when you're looking to get to the higher level of greatness is not good enough. You need to pay attention and intention to what you're doing. Just hitting a golf ball for the sake of saying, "I practiced today, Dad," is not good enough. So I started to do things differently. Rather than, the guy, and you and I have a bunch of these students, the guy that comes to the driving range window, large bucket, and he has a driver and a 5-iron in his hand. Right? All day, right?
See it way too often.
Yes, and he'll hit 2 large buckets inside an hour. Like, that's not practicing. That's rapid fire. That's
Pull and whack.
Yeah, just pull. You're right. I'm not getting any better. Yeah, well, there's definitely a reason for that. So, that moment with my dad motivated me.
Yeah.
Motivated me to be a what my dad would call a student of the game. Like, it's not good enough to just practice, but it lit a fire underneath me in so many ways in my life that it was like one of those moments that defined motivation, but motivation in a productive manner, not just to show up, but to do. So I guess my first question for the dashing Richie Stoltz is, when was the first moment that you felt the most motivated?
Tell me I can't do something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you say I were to go play in a tournament and Coach Bob, for whatever reason, has no confidence in me to play in that tournament.
Which wouldn't happen.
No confidence to win. And he tells me that, well, I'm going to look at Coach Bob and I'm going to go, watch this. I got this. And that's going to motivate me up until that tournament to go get it done. Anytime you tell me I can't do something, that's when I'm the most motivated.
Which I've found in all the years of coaching. That is a trait completely underestimated. Zach had it, Q had it, and you have it. And we'll talk more. I know you don't know who Zach is, but Zach is one of our players who made the finals of the USAM. And Q was one of our players who won the Tournament of Champions for the state of New Jersey.
It beat me.
And beat you, yes.
In that tournament.
Well, you sound bitter about that. That's not
I
good.
came in second.
Came in second. Okay. Which I love, the fact that Tournament of Champions for the state of New Jersey, my guys came in first and second. Just saying. Anyway. That is a trait that people have that is completely underestimated. I think I've called it Tom Brady syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
When people tell you you're unathletic, you're not good enough, you can't do this, you're wasting your time, and you look at them and say, you know what, watch this, right? Because most people, like in the movie Pretty Woman, I remember that you could be so much more, And I guess Julia Roberts says, well, the bad stuff is easier to believe. Yeah, damn right it is. But people that have that gene like you have it are a rare commodity and should be appreciated. So, question number 2, and I've already answered this for myself. What part of your daily routine would you be better without?
Yeah, hitting the snooze. Yeah, and I know a lot of people are guilty of that one. Hitting the snooze. I don't do it every day.
Yeah.
But I do it relatively often. Typically speaking, if I work pretty late, say I'm working on stuff till 12 o'clock at night, and I try and get up for the gym in the morning, I might hit snooze a couple times. Yeah. And I notice when I wake up and I go, man, I just wasted another 30 minutes that I could have got stuff done later on. It kind of hindered my time for the day.
Yeah. Yeah, the people that are nearest and dearest to my life know that I hate wasting time. I like when I do it and I'm conscious of it, it bothers me. We were talking earlier about this and how we ended up here and all that kind of stuff, but I don't like to waste time because time is one thing you can't save. So I had my annual physical at the doctor. What day was it? Wednesday?
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it was right after the meeting, right?
Yeah.
It was Wednesday, right? So, and I know my doctor. He's retiring, which it stinks. So, if Dr. Hanley's watching this podcast, then thank you for all the years. But I went in there and I realized that he is more about the patient than he is about, let's say, the insurance company. Love the guy. So I know he typically runs a few minutes behind when I'm in the waiting room. So what did I do? I brought a book. I brought a book with me, and I took that 20 minutes or so while I was sitting in the patient room to read 5 or 6 chapters of a book. I felt personally that it's more productive. So, time is the one thing you can't save. You can't save time. So if you know you're going to have downtime, rather than watching TikTok, right?
Yeah.
Which I know most young people do. I take that time to try to maximize my time, and that's how we end up with podcasts. That's how we end up with the programs that we do. Is Crazy Coach Bob is always bouncing off the walls with something to do. Anyway.
Yes.
So this is good because I think you and I differ on this, but I want to have a lively debate on this one. Okay. If beauty is in the eye of the beholder, isn't reality?
See, I don't think so. I think your reality is your reality. Now, your future could be in the eye of the beholder, but your reality, where you stand right now, I believe is where you stand right now.
Yeah, like the Bill Parcells, you are what your record says you are.
Yeah.
And so this is a great lesson, I think, for everybody, really. It is, when we teach people, not everybody receives information in the same way. So my father had his doctorate in education. My mother was a school teacher. My ex-wife was a school teacher. I grew up in a house of school teachers. And, sometimes like magazines would come and I'd thumb through different things. And one was like, there's 4 different ways to learn, I think it was. And this is a long time ago. But basically, some people learn better by reading something. Some people learn better by hearing an anecdotal story. Mm-hmm. Some people learn by putting themselves in a better position, kinesthetically, I guess. And it was going through all these different ways of learning. So at the end of each golf lesson that Richie and I teach, I guess the worst, by the way, the worst lesson I ever had of anything, because I took up guitar later in life, I had a guitar instructor that I was working with, right? And it was a 30-minute lesson. And when I sat down, he flipped over the egg timer, right? And literally in 29 minutes and 59 seconds, when that last grain of sand went through the egg timer, he stopped in mid-sentence. Okay, see you next week. And I walked out. The man didn't really care if I learned anything. He just fulfilled his 30 minutes. Whereas Richie and I, when we teach, we're like a doctor's office, basically. Because if someone does not understand that concept, we will spend an extra minute or 2 to make sure they do. Yep. But what else we do is we write down. We give the student, homework. We have a specific homework, and it's old school, guys. But we have the triplicate copies. We keep one for ourselves, one the customer gets, and then one Mary gets to file through to make sure we're staying on top of the ball.
Whenever she gets them from us.
We ran. But we're getting better, right, Mary?
A little bit.
Oh, wow. Okay. We're getting a little better.
We're trying.
So what I do and what I've done in the past is I actually used to keep different colored pens sometimes because I saw somewhere like purple, red, and orange, like people, that pops. So sometimes I'd circle stuff like that. And then I'd draw diagrams where I'd write stories. Like one of our favorite stories, and you know, we say the most misunderstood word in golf is what?
Swing.
Swing. Yeah, it's the one. So Richie and I, you know, we're gonna do our boy band. We're gonna the monotones. Let it go, let it go. Sometimes we'll put that on the bottom, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what we'll put on the bottom of a sheet. So, I guess long story short, there's different ways for people to learn, and it's our job to communicate that way. So my way, like when it says beauty is in the eye of the beholder, isn't reality. I think it absolutely is. Like how my belief is, you know, my reality is what I'm capable of doing, not currently where I am now. So that's how the podcast, right? You know, well, we don't have a podcast. We have no idea what we're doing, and we still
you
don't.
should see the bloopers.
The bloopers. So incidentally, the first 5 minutes of today's podcast, we realized that the microphone was not plugged in. So, and that's our high tech. So
I enjoyed it.
Mary enjoyed the first 5 minutes. Thank you, Mary. I appreciate it. So my reality is the Eric Thomas example, a guy who basically had nothing and decided to do these podcasts, you know, every day for I guess over a year, and to preach his beliefs and what he thought and the whole 9 yards. If his reality was, I think he's from Detroit. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Yeah, I think
but
he
I
splits
could
his
be
time
wrong.
between Detroit and San Diego. I think his wife has MS, so rather than being, because I guess there's a correlation between weather, climate, and like MS stress.
The sun gives her energy.
Correct,
I believe is
yeah.
what it is. Something along those lines.
Right, sun. Did I tell you I'm so bright? My mom calls me son.
It just
had
doesn't get
had to throw
There
it
it is.
I had to throw this one dad joke in.
There it is.
Yeah. So, so that's he goes back and forth. But this guy basically, you know, grew up in the projects and had nothing, and he had a vision of what his reality is. So that is how I'm living my life.
Yeah.
Now, Richie's motivation level is the Tom Brady syndrome, right?
Yeah.
He likes to, you know, and when I coached at Rutgers, or I still coach at Rutgers, but Rutgers at Camden, if you Google Camden, it by the way, Camden's gotten a ton better since I've been there. I mean, it's proved a lot. But at one point, I can think 60 Minutes did a special on it, you know, 20, 30 years ago, that it was like, you know, the number one crime city in the country. So recruiting for golf in that, you know, in that setting is you have to sell a vision. Like you have to sell what you're all about, as opposed to the reality of what the city is. So
Yeah.
that's the way I pursue things. But when I coached you and brought you aboard, yeah, I took the and I'm not an Eagle fan, sorry folks, but I'm not the Buddy Ryan mentalities. It's like us against the world.
Yeah.
Right. And when you go that way, we had a shirt made actually, and my son, who's very Colton, very artistic kid, he helped design it. But basically, it said, what was the
It was Underdog something.
Yeah.
It was the year before I was there.
Right. So, but basically, the T-shirt said that, you know, we were not respected.
Yeah.
Right. And that was our battle cry for that team.
Yeah.
And you know, by the time 2019 rolled around, we beat the number one team in the country.
Yeah.
So, again, just different points of motivation. But you know, from your experience, right? I mean, you can't teach everybody the same way, correct?
No, you cannot.
No.
Not everyone learns differently. So you have to find out how you're going to teach everybody.
Yeah.
You know, person to person.
You got to find their hot spot. Yeah. So that's, I guess, today's overall thing is get off the couch. Okay. It's my father, God bless him wherever he is today. You know, he instilled that in me. Like, you know, yeah, you can sit around all day and just say, you know, reality is what it is. I think reality is where I'm going. The vision, right? Set the bar high, go for that. So, with that said, we're not going to stop until we get to where we want to be, guys. That's what we want to do with this world. So, this is today's episode of the Breakfast Ball. Get off the couch.
Yeah.
Bob Cardia,
Rich Stoltz.
the dashing,
The
Richie
dashing.
Stoltz. The dashing
Richie Stoltz.
Yes. Until next time. See you then.
Glass of bourbon, ha ha. My bourbon, ha ha. My bourbon, ha ha. Alcohol. Because no great story ever started with, I'll have a salad.